This is another video to a question or to Goku. Good to have another question from you. And I want to preface these videos, if you keep asking me questions, I'm going to keep giving you my opinion. But I really am not an authority on any of this. I'm just a guy that searches the internet and watches a lot of TED Talks and YouTube videos and sciencey type stuff. So I know enough to have an opinion, but not enough to know if what my opinion has anything to do with actual reality. So you ask me questions and I'll give you an answer. I haven't been doing a lot of these or answering a lot of questions. Mostly because my house is full of people and I still feel weird about doing videos where other people can hear me while I'm blathering on in front of a camera. I suppose it's my own hang-up, but you get what you get. So I was going to just address this one with that preface being over with. Let's see, I think man will land on Mars by 2030. 12, 10. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Which would be in your lifetime. I hope so, yeah, I'm glad of that. We will go to Mars, or someone told me we will go to Mars for heavy metals. And what are my thoughts on that? When I first read that question, I was a little confused. I'm not quite sure what you mean by heavy metals. There's metals, metallics, and then classically, I suppose, heavy metals would be more radioactive, uranium, denser, specialized metals. Toxic metals, I suppose, is the more appropriate term for that. But either way, either of those, I don't know, or I'm not aware of any shortages on Earth for metals. I know there's some scarcity, but we usually overcome the scarcity by finding other ways to do it, usually greener ways. Less toxic ways, because a lot of the heavy metals, the radioactive ones, are toxic and probably not the best thing to use in a gadget like a cell phone or something like that that you're holding up to your face and brain. So I don't think we're short of those, and if we are, I don't know about it. But I think we'll go to Mars, and we will mine metals. There will be some mineral mining, metal mining, but like the Earth, Mars does have a gravity. So the cost benefit in my head, just by kind of going over broad, non-fantastical numbers, the cost of mining them on Mars, packaging them, putting them into a ship, launching them out of Mars's gravity well, and then bring them back to Earth would be so expensive that it wouldn't be worth it, that I could see. Mining stuff on Mars for building on Mars, I see that. Obviously, you're going to have people living on Mars. They're going to build factories and 3D printers and have to have mining for material. So they're going to build stuff on Mars. They're going to mine for building on Mars. And I would imagine they would eventually, and most sci-fi books and movies will say this, they'll eventually have their own spaceport and use those metals to build their own ships and their own society and their own stuff. So I don't think we'll ever mine Mars for Earth. I think that's kind of a sci-fi fantasy thing where we have a magic energy source that we can launch ships from a planet into atmosphere at zero cost or very low cost, and then get them to where they need to be really fast to another planet. Unless that magic energy source is found, the economical benefits of transporting minerals from one planet to another seems kind of outrageous to me. But mining an asteroid, there's no real gravity well to speak of. So I could see taking a tow ship somewhere and towing or somehow bringing an asteroid or chunks of asteroid back to whatever planet and just dropping it into the ocean, or breaking it up and doing a space elevator type of thing. I could see that. But from Mars to Earth, or going to Mars specifically to mine Mars for metals to bring back to Earth, I don't see that as a viable business model. I could be wrong. There may be reason for it that I don't see, or if a model other than a business model, if we're suddenly all socialists and for the good of mankind we need to bring stuff to Earth, I could see that. We could all get behind it, and damn the cost, we're going to do it because we want it and we need it and it's better for people. I think we're a long way from that kind of human philosophy. I have my fingers crossed, but I think we're a long way from that. Another question I got from NeverEnoughBall. Some of these YouTube names, although mine's Technoblick, so what can I say? Do I think the species will survive long enough to obtain faster than light travel? With some of the data on ice caps this year compared to previous estimates, I'm not all that hopeful. That mixed with what feels like a crushing amount of populace who are still fueled by religious dogma. Nice to consider, but currently seems far-fetched to me, which is depressing. Man, you're right. That's a depressing statement, or a depressing way to be. Let me try and shed some optimistic pixie dust onto that. Let's see first. The data on ice caps, global warming, I'm not all that hopeful. Feels like crushing amount of populace who are still fully fueled by religious dogma. This year, I've read some statistics. This year, it seems that if non-religious atheism keeps progressing by the numbers as it has been in the past, by the end of this year, there will be more non-religious people in America, and I'm just going to go with America for now because that's what concerns me the most at the moment. So by the end of this year, there should be more non-believers, more atheists and other than Muslims. It was previous to this coming event. Christians were the most by 3 times. There's way more Christians still than Muslims, than non-religious or non-affiliated and atheist. This year should be the first time that non-affiliation and atheism will be second place. And I know religions and people are forced to give Muslims more say as an official religion, but I think once atheism and non-belief becomes number 2, it will force them to recognize non-belief and atheism as an actual stance, and not be able to just go, oh, well, they're evil, they're sinners, or they believe, or they're just angry at God. They won't be able to dismiss non-belief as easily, and I think that's going to do a great many things for the U.S. as a culture. I think presidents and politicians will have to then pay attention to questions of their religion, and we'll be able to more press them into explaining why their batshit crazy belief is more logical and will help our society, which we already know it doesn't, but we'll be able to press them more with a little more authority. So I think that's going to be a benefit. Let's see, the other one was, do I think as a species we'll survive long enough to obtain faster than light travel? Funny you should ask that one. I was just watching a TED Talk and then reading some articles, and I don't have them. I read them, it's late, and I go, oh, I'll have to remember that, and then I never save the link or anything. But apparently there's a group of physicists that... Oh, SourceFed did an article or a thing on it. So if you're not subscribed to SourceFed, a Philip DeFranco production, which is weird as hell just to say a Philip DeFranco production. But they went over that there's some physicists that believe that warp travel is plausible, and from previous research I've done and videos on the supercooled superconductors that levitate over magnets, and how that accomplishes that is by squeezing space-time fibers. Bad language for all this, but there's space-time timey-wimey stuff, and there's lines, and it grabs hold of that and pinches it, and once it gathers those lines, it then looks like it's levitating, or it's holding itself in space-time. And physicists believe the opposite is plausible, where you could separate, those are messages, sorry. The opposite of that is plausible, where you could separate the lines of space-time, creating the warp bubble from Star Trek, which will give you the ability to go faster than light. I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but the fact that they're working on it right now is pretty exciting. Because I have to admit, before now, I was of the mind that faster than light travel probably is not going to be possible. It's not physically possible as a straightforward thing. You can't get a semi-truck or a rocket and just pound a lot of engines and just rocket it past the speed of light. That's physically impossible. Physics says that's not possible. And I believe them. So before this came out, and before warp drive and the quantum line theory and all that stuff, I was of the mind that it just wasn't going to happen. And I was a little depressed that we would never reach another planet or another star. The closest star would take us tens of thousands of years to get to, and there's not really much there that we can see. I'm sure people would still do it, but that was pretty depressing. And I was basing my future space exploration on quantum computers and being able to simulate a universe just like this one, and explore a simulated universe through virtual reality as if it was reality, and then get the diversity, which would still be just as cool, and I'm still planning on doing. But now I'm actually full of ideas that we might be some violent, hairy monkeys or hairless monkeys rocketing through space at faster than light, shooting shit. So now I'm having to reconsider if we are able to get this within like a decade, if they're working on it and they just go, Eureka, we figured it out, we can now go faster than light, I'm going to have to revisit my premise that the likelihood of aliens visiting our planet and abducting cows and doing anal probes on them and having sex with the humans and all that crazy stuff, I'll have to revisit that. Because at this point, if humans get faster than light travel and we rocket through the universe and find another planet that has a bunch of rednecks in the middle of nowhere, I can almost guarantee we're going to fuck with them. So, if that happens, I'm then going to have to change all my ideas on what some of these stories are and give it more weight. So I'm not sure if that's helping make it less depressing. I think we're getting better. I think it is going to be better. Non-belief is on the rise. Rationality and skepticism is on the rise. The more people get communications technology openly, and cell phones, smartphones, which I wish we'd stop calling them phones. I use my phone, my device, for talking the least amount of all the things that I do. I text, I surf, I research, everything I do on my phone isn't phone. I don't talk and say hi. I do other stuff on it. So I'd like to get away from, I would call it my device. As if anybody cares what I call it. But the more people get those and have access to the information, I think more skepticism, and the more people are involved in reality, I think it's getting better. Religion is, you can just look at it and see it is fighting for its life. And it will eventually lose. I just hope not a lot of people die in the process, and I hope it doesn't take so long that I'm dead before I get to benefit, or before I get to see it. The other thing that I want to put in right on the end, I know this is going to be a long one, it's the end of the night, and I have the office to myself, so I get to ramble and talk about stuff I've been thinking about most of the day. the open source governments, some TED Talks. If you haven't been seeing the TED Talks about open source government and crowdsourced, I did a video a few months ago on crowdsourced government. There's more and more people talking about it, and I think that's fantastic, and it's probably going to be the way it goes. But again, it's going to suck ass and be very uncomfortable in the transition. So, as the ancient Chinese proverb and threat goes, may we live in interesting times, and we certainly do. Thanks for your questions. Take them with a grain of salt, a giant grain of salt, and some skepticism, because I have to say, I don't think I know what the hell I'm talking about. I have opinions. I think the way I think is probably the best, but I'm not a professor. I'm just blather on the internet. So thanks for watching if you got through it, and peace. Bye.